I'm going to need you to be open-minded with this video. I'm going to be giving you a lot of hypotheticals. However, I'm going to back them up with some actual factuals that are happening to open up the possibility of why these things might be more realistic than you might believe. So, we're going to get to Joe Burrow being a 49er in a minute. But first, I've got to walk you through what's happening with the Rams and Matthew Stafford so that I can tie all of this together. So, if you remember, during the season, there were rumors that Matthew Stafford might be traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, those turned out to be just rumors. He was not traded. The team ended up making the playoffs, one game away from the NFC Championship, losing to the Eagles. Fast forward to yesterday, where Malik Neighbors puts out a tweet with the number 9 and a ram emoji. Like, okay, that's weird. Does he want to play with Matthew Stafford? And why the heck would he go to the Giants? But it makes you wonder, does that mean that there are talks about Matthew Stafford potentially being available? Maybe. But sometimes players just do crazy things and they try to recruit. And this is Malik Neighbors doing just that. Who knows? But Matthew Stafford's wife, Kelly Stafford, has been very, let's say, controversial, saying a lot of things that probably she shouldn't say, said that she's upset. She doesn't understand why Cooper Kupp is leaving this team. They were one game away from the NFC Championship. She believes if they had gone to the NFC Championship, they would have gone to the Super Bowl. And she believes that the team should stay together. Now, how much of that is her belief versus Matthew Stafford's, I don't know. And she said she loves LA. However, she wants her husband to get the respect that he deserves, and she is open to adventures. So, once again, is this his wife talking, or is this him talking? A little bit of both. I'm not quite sure. But it does suggest that there's a little trouble with the Rams and Matthew Stafford coming to an agreement on a new deal, an extension, what have you. Matthew Stafford's a little bit older. He did look like he was declining a little bit this year, but by the time the playoffs came around, he looked just as good as he ever did. And it sounds like he wants to play a couple years. And he and his wife might be willing to play elsewhere as they wind out his career. The Rams have a very competitive team, but they also know there are other quarterbacks out there. And if they can get something of substance for Matthew Stafford, then they might be willing to do that. And here's another reason that I know that this just might be true. My guy, Jake Ellenbogen, shout out to him. He runs his Rams channel. It was him that broke the news that Aaron Donald was retiring. Not a big wig, not anybody else. It was Jake. Jake knew before anybody, days before anybody, that he was retiring. And he put out a video talking about Matthew Stafford and the possibility of him leaving, which tells me there is some smoke to this potential fire. So here we go. Let's look at Matthew Stafford. Let's set him aside. Let's move on to Joe Burrow. And I'm going to show you this tweet that came out just a few hours ago. This is from Jordan Schultz. League executives are well aware of the public pressure Joe Burrow has been applying to the Bengals since the season ended, and it has continued this week on Radio Row in New Orleans. Burrow has made it clear both privately and publicly that the team must do whatever it takes to keep the core intact. There's frustration over key players leaving, and he wants to see T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and Mike Gesicki all taken care of. The next few months will be super interesting. Now, how does this pertain to the San Francisco 49ers? I will tell you, but first, a word from our sponsor. Right now, Underdog for the big game has two major promos. Number one is a no sweat pick, meaning you make your picks around the big game, you don't end up winning, they will credit your account back with the money that you put towards that specific choice. And they are giving you a free pick. Travis Kelce, 1 yard. It's a lock. Add him to your no sweat picks, and you are off and running. Underdog, link is in the description. Check them out. They've been a great sponsor all year long. Have some fun with Underdog through the big game. Now, Joe Burrow, how does he pertain to the San Francisco 49ers? How am I going to tie this whole thing together? Well, I'm first going to go back to 2021. If you remember Matthew Stafford, when he hit the open market, it was the 49ers and the Rams that were in on Stafford. The Rams ultimately were able to land him before the 49ers could become big players for him. The 49ers then pivoted and they got Trey Lance. Clearly, the Rams won that time around. Well, I'm reading into what Joe Burrow is saying, and he wants T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, Mike Gesicki, all to get the bag. That's not possible. They can't pay all of these guys, and Joe Burrow knows that. So, Joe Burrow knowing that, that means if they don't oblige him, bring those guys back, and oh, by the way, they've still got to improve this team if they're going to be a real serious contender again. They've still got to get a better O-line, a better defense. There's a lot that team still needs on top of bringing those guys back. If they can't produce a winning team for Joe Burrow, a team that he can go to battle with, Joe Burrow just might request a trade. And I know that sounds crazy, but he knows they can't bring all those guys back and do all the things he's looking for. He's really putting the organization between a rock and a hard place. And he also knows that the Bengals historically are very, very cheap. So if they don't meet his demands, I believe that there's a chance here that Joe Burrow may request a trade. Now, the Rams might shop Stafford. So that tells me the two teams that might really be interested in Joe Burrow, first of all, it's going to be an NFC team. There's no way that the Bengals are going to trade him to the AFC. That's number one, if they were to ever trade him. Number two, the Rams and the 49ers make the most sense. I'll add the Vikings. They also make some sense. But if it comes down between the Rams and the 49ers again, my question to you is, are you okay with Joe Burrow landing with the Rams? Or would you be willing for the 49ers to give up what it would truly take to get a Joe Burrow in the red and gold? And I believe to get Joe Burrow, you're looking at 3 first-round draft picks and Brock Purdy. Is that something you as a fan would be willing to do? To me, it's a no-brainer. Go get Joe Burrow if he's available. You cannot let him go to the Rams, or you are not ever going to win a championship. It's just not going to happen. You add Joe Burrow to the NFC and put him in the division, good luck. Brock Purdy versus Joe Burrow, give me Joe Burrow 11 times out of 10, period. So for me, it's a no-brainer. For you, it may not be. That's a lot of capital, but I don't believe the 49ers could afford Joe Burrow going to the Rams. Again, this is all hypotheticals. I completely understand that. But when you look at how things are playing out, I don't believe it's that far-fetched that we might get there at some point during this offseason. So something to keep an eye on. I think there's a lot of crazy things that could happen this offseason. I'm super excited for it. And I want to see where the 49ers get involved.